Okay, uh, this is going to have to be multiple part videos because of the limitations of YouTube and how long it can be. So let me first just show you how I have things laid out on my bench. There's my vise right in front of me with the jig already in it. I keep a tool caddy to the right of me with the tools that I'm going to use. You notice I have multiple spools of white thread. Just makes it easier. If I run out of thread, I don't have to stop and spool it. I can just grab another one. And over on my left is where I keep my flash. I'm using two colors for this, so I have two colors there. Sometimes when I'm just tying one that uses one color, I keep it down here at the base. And you can cut this or you can pull this. If you pull it and it's new, it's not going to come right out. Sometimes it does like that, and sometimes it doesn't. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let me put this back. All right. So let's start. I start right up at the front of the head, and I make a few wraps, cut it. Now I have a crank on mine, so I just crank it. But if you don't have a crank, you're obviously going to be doing this by hand, which takes not long, but longer than it takes me. And I'm not covering this completely, I'm just creating a base. Okay. So let me reposition that a little bit. So I basically have gone back to about this point with the thread, and I'm right at the hook point. Put a few more wraps in that. I'm right at the hook point, and I'm ready to tie. Now, I usually keep my shorter bucktails. This is a really nice one, but it's kind of short. I keep it on the left-hand side, so it's easy for me to get to, or I keep it on my lap. And then I take the longer ones, this is a good example of a longer one, and I usually keep it on the right. The shorter one is going to go as the first layer, and I do it in 3 clumps. You could try to do it in 2. I used to do it in 2. A little more work manipulating it, but for me it works better with 3. You can do it whatever way works best for you. Just tilt this just a little bit. Okay, so I grab a clump like that and straighten it out. Now, sometimes I'll grab it and tip it and clean it, but most of the time I won't. Most of the time I'll just measure it, and the way I measure it is the first clump that I put on, I want it to be from this point to this point. That's how long I want it to be. And so that's about how long it is now, a little bit longer. Actually, probably to the hook point. I'm sorry, the bend of the hook. And then I'll just cut it flush. I'll lay it on, make a couple turns, take my scissors, take about half of it, put it on the other side, push a little bit, and the goal is to have a little bit covering on both sides. Not a lot, just a little. And then once I feel I have it the way I want it, I'll make a couple securing wraps. And that looks pretty good on that side, that looks pretty good on that side. If you look at it from this side, it looks like there's spacing in there. But we can fix it by just manipulating the hair. But we're not going to do that right now. So now I'm going to grab a second clump. When you grab a clump, make sure you're not grabbing the black hairs. If you do end up grabbing a couple underneath, it's not that big of a deal for this wrap because you can't see it, but on top you can. So I make one wrap, and then I push it around, and then I push it around over here. I want to make sure I don't push it around too much so it thins it out too much, and I especially want to make sure it matches up to the hair right there, so it looks like it's all one piece. And then I'll make a few securing wraps. Ideally, you want this to be flush. You don't want it at an angle like that. And then I take my third one, trim the edges, and spin it around to the bare spot, lay it on, one unwrap, move it around till it looks like it's the way I want it. You have to manipulate the hair a little so it kind of goes together. Everything up on the top. Put a little pressure on this to keep it where you want it. Sometimes you have to move the hair. And once you move your hair like that, and you get it. The whole goal here is to cover the whole shank of the hook. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna make a couple securing wraps. Make an adjustment back here, another securing wrap. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just gonna tighten down on it. And this is pretty fluffy stuff. Usually I put my scissors down for this one. This is pretty fluffy stuff. So this is gonna be like kind of a thick bucktail. Some of them are thicker, thinner than most, but this looks like a nice base on there. Okay. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to get the flash. Now this uses two colors flash, so it uses a red and it uses a silver. So I just grab one of each, kind of eyeball it down the middle, put my thumb on it, make a couple wraps, grab the ends, fold it over, and I do the same 4 times. I do it on the top, on the sides, and on the bottom. About halfway. It's not that critical that it's halfway, because that means the flash is going to be different lengths, which is perfectly fine. Matter of fact, that's kind of the way you want it. You don't want everything the same length. That's why we don't stack the bucktail. We just take it off the way it is. A few turns. The quicker you can do this, the quicker you get your fly. Sometimes you end up grabbing more strands than you need to. If you do that, depending on how many there are, if there's a couple extra ones, that's fine, but if there's like 4 or 5, you need to separate them. So then fold it over, and I have, that's it. Okay, so I'll put this down. Now, I don't put cement on it, but I crank really hard. So hard that if I put any more pressure, I'll break the thread. But I need to make sure that I secure this bucktail very well so it doesn't pull out. When I'm done, you can take a pair of pliers and yank on this bucktail and it won't come out. That's because of how secure I'm doing it. Now when I get to a point where I think I have it really secure, sometimes because of my vise, I'll get this thing out of the way, I'll crank it a little bit and get a little bit more thread on it, just for more security. Not 100% necessary. You can do that by hand. So, and you don't have to worry about covering up all of the flash, because you're not going to see it because it's going to be covered by the outer layer. Okay, that looks pretty good. So, got my thread. Now I take this and I move this up to about right here. And that's where I'm going to make my tying point. And now I'm going to grab my longer here. You can see how much longer it is. You want this fly to be approximately 3.5 to 4 inches. And I do the same process for this. I trim, lay it on top, and make a wrap or two. Get a little bit of this over on the other side. The reason I do that is because it allows me to push this over and have it sit flush or sit parallel with the hook shank. Once I think I have it the way I want, if I've got a lot there, I'll push it down a little bit more on the sides. Take a look, flip it around. Once you get it, then you kind of secure it like that. Don't worry about it being twisted right there down. It's not a big issue. Fix that later. Grab another clump. Remember, I'm doing all this in clumps of 3. If I get a piece that's too long, I just pull it off. Okay, so I lay it on, make a wrap, kind of melt it into the other one. Now I just noticed that I've got some brown hair in there, a lot of brown hair. So I need to pull this back off, and I can either pull the hair off like that. If you have a big clump, that's okay, or you have to just throw it away and grab another one. So I was able to pull it off. Couple, it's a little short on that. I mean, a little thinner now, but still plenty for what I want to do. I'm going to secure that. Get this up on top here. Remember, I'm not going to put 1-3, so I need to make sure that I cover it thoroughly. Alright, that looks good. I'll grab my third one. Clean this one a little bit because it's really heavy. Trim it. Flip it around. Lay it on the bare spot. One turn. Then spin it with my fingers, get it to be positioned correctly so it mixes well with the other hair. That's important, because if not, it'll look like you have a space. And you don't want to have spaces. So once you get that the way you think you want it, do a couple more securing turns, spin it around and take a look at it. Give it a little inspection here. This is kind of a bushy one. See that angle there? I don't know if you can see that, but that's not good. So I need to change the position of the bucktail. You pull it up like that. And then once you get it the way you want it, put a securing wrap on it. So it looks like it's all one piece of bucktail, like not like you put in 3 clumps. Okay, so once you get it like that, then I come along and I trim these edges because I don't want to have to trim them later with the razor blade. It's more work. Wipe it down, and then put the scissors down again, and I do serious cranking on this too. You don't want to see anything. This needs to be a perfect head. Now, in my case, this makes it a lot quicker for me to do it. I have to finish it by hand, but I can get a good base of hair like this, which increases how long it takes, or minimizes how long it takes for me to do this. Okay, so now I'll just take it and I'll walk around and make sure it's nice and even. I want it nice and even here, all the way around. I don't want to see any spaces in between, so you don't want to see anything in between. So it just looks like it's a really nice, tight coating of thread. And then when you come up here, you want to make sure you cover all the hair. And once you get to that point, and it's nice and even, then you can do your whip finish. And what I usually do is I'll do 3, pull it, and then I'll do 3 more. This isn't going anywhere before it gets cemented, but just for extra security. And then I'll clip it, and I'm done. Now this is a fluffy jig. Okay? And the shape of it is pretty much all the same length, which is okay. Let me show you another one. It has a little bit different, it's thinner, doesn't have as much material, which is fine too. As a matter of fact, I kind of like this one a little better. And then I have another one here that has a little bit longer here on the top, which is fine. Sometimes you can make it longer on the bottom, longer on the top. Any one of those 3 will work. This is probably the one I like the least because it does have a lot of hair on it. Although when it's wet, it won't matter. As far as what's sticking out the bottom here, as long as they're not too long, I'll leave them. But if they are, I'll just kind of snip them a little bit like that. So there is a finished jig. And if you look all the way around it, you can't see any spacing. It looks really nice. If I were to do this again, I'd probably use just slightly less clumps of hair. That way I'd get it to be shaped nicely. A little, when it's in the water, it's gonna shrunk down. It's gonna look nice. Okay, so there is a finished jig. I did one earlier in chartreuse and white just to show the contrast. That has a nice shape as well. So I think it's personal preference as far as